The morning sun filtered through the tall windows of Windsor Castle as King Charles III adjusted his tie in the mirror. Today was different from his usual royal duties. He was scheduled to visit a local fitness center that had been supporting young people in the community. The visit was part of his ongoing commitment to youth development programs across the United Kingdom. Prince William arrived at the castle earlier than expected, carrying a folder of documents related to his own charitable work. As he walked through the familiar corridors, he could hear his father's voice coming from the study, discussing the day's schedule with his private secretary. The fitness center visit should be straightforward, the secretary was explaining. They've organized a demonstration of their youth training programs, and there will be a brief ceremony to recognize their community impact. Charles nodded thoughtfully. At 75, he had grown comfortable with these public engagements, but he always appreciated having family support when possible. When William knocked and entered the study, Charles's face brightened noticeably. "William, perfect timing. I was just reviewing today's schedule. Would you care to join me for this fitness center visit? I think your presence would mean a great deal to the young people there." William smiled and set down his folder. "Of course, Father. I'd be happy to come along. What sort of activities are they planning?" The private secretary consulted his notes. "They have a youth boxing program, fitness training for disadvantaged teenagers, and a new initiative helping young people develop confidence through physical activity. The center has been quite successful in reducing local youth crime rates." Charles walked over to the window, looking out at the gardens. When I was younger, physical fitness wasn't emphasized quite the same way it is today. These young people are incredibly dedicated to their training." William joined his father at the window. "The level of commitment is impressive. I've seen some of the programs, Kate, and I have visited. These kids train like professional athletes." "Indeed," Charles replied. "And from what I understand, many of them have developed quite impressive physiques through their dedication. The transformation stories are remarkable." The conversation was interrupted by a gentle knock at the door. A staff member entered to inform them that the cars were ready for departure. Charles gathered his papers while William collected his folder, and together they made their way toward the castle's main entrance. As they walked, Charles mentioned some of the background information he had received about the fitness center. The facility had been established 5 years ago in response to rising youth unemployment and crime in the area. What started as a small boxing gym had expanded into a comprehensive fitness and life skills center. "The founder is quite an interesting character," Charles explained. "Former military, turned his life around after some personal struggles, and now he's dedicated to helping others do the same. His approach combines physical training with mentorship and life skills development." William was genuinely interested. That's exactly the kind of holistic approach that makes a real difference. Physical fitness is just one part of building confidence and self-worth. Their conversation continued as they settled into the official car. The drive to the fitness center would take about 30 minutes, giving them time to review the program details and discuss their approach for the visit. The fitness center was located in what had once been a struggling neighborhood. As their motorcade approached, both Charles and William could see the positive changes that had taken place in the area. New businesses had opened, the streets were cleaner, and there was a general sense of renewal that often accompanies successful community development projects. Young people had gathered outside the fitness center, many of them current or former participants in the programs. Their excitement was obvious as they waited for the royal arrival. Some held handmade signs welcoming the king and prince, while others practiced the movements they would demonstrate during the visit. The center's founder, Marcus Thompson, stood near the entrance reviewing final details with his staff. He was a tall, powerfully built man in his 40s whose military bearing was still evident in his posture and demeanor. His journey from troubled youth to successful community leader was exactly the kind of story that resonated with Charles's belief in second chances and personal transformation. As a royal car pulled up to the entrance, Marcus stepped forward with several of his senior staff members. The excitement among the gathered young people was palpable, but they maintained the respectful distance that had been rehearsed during their preparation for the visit. Charles emerged from the car first, followed by William. Both were dressed in smart casual attire appropriate for a fitness center visit, though they maintained the dignified appearance expected of senior royals. The crowd of young people erupted in cheers and applause, their enthusiasm genuine and infectious. Marcus approached and bowed respectfully before extending his hand in greeting. "Your Majesty, Your Royal Highness, welcome to our center. We're honored by your visit today." Charles shook Marcus's hand warmly. "Thank you for having us. I've heard remarkable things about the work you're doing here. William and I are both very interested to see your programs in action." The initial greetings were conducted with the formal courtesy expected of royal visits, but there was an underlying warmth that suggested this would be more than just a ceremonial appearance. Both Charles and William had a genuine interest in youth development work, and Marcus's passion for his mission was immediately apparent. As they prepared to enter the building, Marcus began explaining the layout of the facility and the different programs they would observe. The main gymnasium housed the boxing and general fitness programs, while smaller rooms were dedicated to life skills workshops, academic tutoring, and career guidance sessions. "We believe in developing the whole person," Marcus explained as they walked toward the entrance. "Physical fitness builds confidence and discipline, but we also focus on education, career skills, and personal development. Many of our participants have gone on to successful careers in various fields." The anticipation was building as they approached the main entrance to the fitness center. Inside, dozens of young people were waiting to demonstrate their skills and share their personal transformation stories. Neither Charles nor William could have anticipated that one casual comment during the upcoming demonstrations would create a moment of unexpected humor that would be talked about for years to come. The inside of the fitness center buzzed with controlled energy as Charles and William followed Marcus through the main entrance. The facility was impressive, with modern equipment arranged throughout a spacious, well-lit interior. Motivational posters covered the walls, many featuring success stories of local young people who had transformed their lives through the center's programs. About 30 teenagers and young adults had gathered in the main gymnasium area, representing different programs offered by the center. They stood in neat groups, each wearing matching t-shirts that identified their specific training focus: boxing, strength training, cardio fitness, and mixed martial arts. Their excitement was obvious, but they maintained the respectful composure they had practiced for weeks leading up to this visit. Marcus gestured toward the first group. "Your Majesty, I'd like to introduce you to our boxing program participants. These young people train 6 days a week and have shown remarkable improvement not just in their physical abilities, but in their academic performance and social behavior as well." Charles approached the boxing group with genuine interest. The participants ranged in age from 15 to 22, and their dedication to training was evident in their confident posture and obvious physical fitness. Several had competed in regional competitions, bringing recognition to both themselves and their community. "How long have you been training here?" Charles asked a young woman named Sarah, who had been selected to speak for the boxing group. 2 years, Your Majesty," Sarah replied with a respectful smile. "When I started, I had trouble concentrating in school and was getting into arguments at home. The training here taught me discipline and gave me goals to work toward. Now I'm preparing for college and hoping to study sports psychology." William joined the conversation. "That's an impressive transformation. What aspects of the training do you find most helpful?" "The physical training builds confidence," Sarah explained, "but Marcus also teaches us about goal setting, time management, and handling pressure. Those skills help with everything, not just boxing." As they moved to the next group, Marcus explained how the center's approach differed from traditional gyms. "We don't just focus on physical exercise. Each participant works with a mentor who helps them develop life skills, academic goals, and career plans. The physical training becomes a foundation for broader personal development." The strength training group was preparing to demonstrate their routine. These participants had been working together for several months, developing not only individual strength, but also teamwork and mutual support skills. Their instructor, a former competitive powerlifter named James, had developed a program specifically designed for young people who had previously struggled with confidence and self-discipline. These participants have made incredible progress, James explained to the royal visitors. When they started, many of them couldn't complete basic exercises. Now they're helping to mentor newer participants and taking leadership roles in their schools and communities. Charles watched as the group demonstrated their routine, clearly impressed by their coordination and dedication. The transformation you've achieved here goes far beyond physical fitness. These young people carry themselves with real confidence and purpose. William nodded in agreement. You can see the pride they take in their achievements. That kind of self-respect makes all the difference in how young people approach challenges. The next demonstration came from the mixed martial arts group, led by a soft-spoken instructor named David, who had competed professionally before dedicating himself to youth development. His approach emphasized respect, discipline, and controlled aggression as tools for building character rather than promoting violence. Mixed martial arts gets a bad reputation sometimes, David explained, but when taught properly, it develops incredible mental discipline. These participants learn to control their emotions, think strategically under pressure, and respect their opponents and training partners. As the mixed martial arts group prepared their demonstration, Marcus mentioned that several participants had used their training as a pathway to college scholarships and military service. The discipline and physical conditioning they developed made them attractive candidates for various opportunities they might not have otherwise considered. The demonstration itself was carefully choreographed to show technique and control rather than aggression. Participants moved through various exercises that highlighted their skill development while emphasizing the mental focus required for their training. Charles and William watched with obvious interest, asking questions about specific techniques and training methods. The level of concentration required is remarkable, Charles observed. These movements require incredible precision and mental discipline. That's exactly the point, David replied. When young people learn to control their bodies and focus their minds to this degree, they develop tools that help them succeed in every area of life. Following the martial arts demonstration, the group moved to an area where several participants were engaged in strength training exercises. This was where the centerpiece of the day's activities would unfold, though none of the participants or organizers anticipated the moment of humor that was about to occur. The strength training area featured modern equipment and free weights with safety mats and proper ventilation, creating an environment suitable for serious athletic development. Several participants had been training intensively for months, developing impressive physical strength and muscle definition that reflected their dedication to the program. Among the strength training participants was a young man named Jamie, who had been with the program for almost 2 years. At 19, he had developed from a skinny, unmotivated teenager into a confident young adult with well-defined muscles and an impressive physique. His transformation represented exactly the kind of success story that made the center's work so meaningful. Jamie was preparing to demonstrate a deadlifting routine that showcased both his strength development and his mastery of proper technique. As he approached the weights, his concentration was intense, and his muscular physique was clearly evident through his fitted training shirt. Marcus had specifically chosen Jamie for this demonstration because his personal story was so compelling. He had started the program after dropping out of school and spending months without direction or motivation. The physical training had given him goals to work toward, while the mentorship program helped him develop academic and career plans. Jamie represents everything we hope to achieve, Marcus explained to Charles and William as Jamie prepared for his demonstration. When he started here, he weighed barely 60 kilograms and had never been inside a gym. Now he's preparing to study exercise science at university and hopes to become a trainer himself. As Jamie positioned himself at the weights, his focus and determination were obvious to everyone watching. His physical transformation was impressive, but equally important was the confidence and sense of purpose that radiated from his demeanor. The weights he was preparing to lift represented months of progressive training and personal discipline. The moment was building towards something neither Charles nor William expected, though the young participants sensed that something special was happening. The combination of royal attention, personal achievement, and genuine community pride was creating an atmosphere where spontaneous moments of connection could easily occur. Jamie approached the loaded barbell with a focused determination that had become his trademark over nearly 2 years of intensive training. The weight he was preparing to lift represented not just physical strength, but the culmination of a personal journey that had transformed him from a directionless teenager into a confident young man with clear goals for his future. Charles and William positioned themselves where they could observe the demonstration clearly, both genuinely interested in seeing the results of the center's training programs. The other participants gathered around respectfully, creating a supportive atmosphere that reflected the community spirit Marcus had worked hard to foster within the center. Jamie will be demonstrating a deadlift with 160 kilograms, Marcus announced. When he started here, he could barely lift the empty barbell. His progress represents the kind of transformation that's possible when young people commit to disciplined training and personal development. As Jamie bent down to grip the barbell, his muscles tensed visibly beneath his training shirt. The months of dedicated work had sculpted his physique into an impressive example of what focused strength training could achieve. His shoulders had broadened considerably, his arms showed well-defined muscle development, and his overall bearing reflected the confidence that comes from achieving challenging physical goals. William watched with obvious interest as Jamie positioned himself for the lift. Having maintained his own fitness routine throughout his military service and royal duties, William appreciated the dedication required to achieve this level of physical development. He could see that Jamie's transformation went far beyond mere muscle building to encompass real athletic ability and personal discipline. The technique is as important as the strength, the instructor James explained quietly to the royal visitors. Jamie has learned to engage his entire body properly, which protects him from injury while allowing him to lift heavier weights safely. This kind of body control takes months to develop. Charles nodded, watching Jamie's careful preparation. The mental focus required must be considerable. You can see his concentration building as he prepares. Jamie took a deep breath, engaged his core muscles, and began the lift. The weight rose smoothly from the floor as he executed the movement with perfect form, his muscles working in coordinated effort that demonstrated months of proper training. When he reached the top of the lift and held the position momentarily before lowering the weight, the watching participants broke into spontaneous applause. "Excellent form, Jamie," Marcus called out approvingly. "That represents real progress for where you started." As Jamie straightened up from completing the lift, his shirt had ridden up slightly during the exertion, revealing his well-developed abdominal muscles. The physical transformation was striking, particularly for those who remembered the thin, unmotivated teenager who had first entered the center nearly 2 years earlier. William, observing Jamie's obvious physical development, turned to Marcus with a comment intended to acknowledge the impressive results of the training program. "You've certainly got him looking quite buff," William said appreciatively, using the colloquial term that came naturally to him in the casual atmosphere of the fitness center. The comment was meant as a straightforward compliment about Jamie's physical transformation and the effectiveness of the training program. William had intended to acknowledge both Jamie's hard work and the center's successful approach to youth development. However, the casual use of the word buff in the context of a formal royal visit created an unexpectedly humorous moment. Charles, who had been watching Jamie's demonstration with serious attention, caught William's comment and turned toward his son with a slightly raised eyebrow. The contrast between the formal atmosphere of a royal visit and William's casual, contemporary language choice created a moment of unexpected levity. "Buff," Charles repeated, with a tone that suggested both amusement and mild surprise at his son's choice of words. The formality that typically characterized royal public appearances was momentarily set aside as father and son shared a brief moment of genuine interaction. William realized immediately that his casual comment had created an unintentionally humorous situation. Rather than feeling embarrassed, he found himself grinning at the contrast between his spontaneous remark and the formal setting of their official visit. "Well, yes," William replied, gesturing toward Jamie, who was now modestly pulling his shirt back into place. "I mean, the physical transformation is quite remarkable. The young man has clearly put in tremendous work." Charles looked back at Jamie, then at William, and suddenly, the humor of the situation seemed to strike him fully. Here they were, conducting a serious royal visit to discuss youth development and community improvement, and his son had just described a participant as buff, with the casual enthusiasm of any impressed observer. The moment of recognition sparked something unexpected in Charles. Despite his reputation for formal behavior and traditional royal protocol, he found William's spontaneous comment genuinely amusing. The authenticity of the moment, combined with the relaxed atmosphere of the fitness center, created space for a more natural interaction between father and son. A smile began to spread across Charles's face as he processed the humor of the situation. William's use of contemporary slang during a formal royal engagement was exactly the kind of unscripted moment that revealed the genuine personalities behind their official roles. "I suppose that's one way to describe the results of dedicated training," Charles said, his smile becoming more pronounced. The formal tone he had maintained throughout most of the visit was giving way to something more natural and spontaneous. Jamie, who had overheard the exchange, looked slightly confused by the royal conversation about his appearance, but pleased that his demonstration had been well received. The other participants were watching the interaction between Charles and William with interest, sensing that something amusing was happening even if they didn't fully understand context. Marcus, observing the moment of levity between the royal father and son, found himself smiling as well. The formal tension that often characterizes royal visits was dissolving into something more genuine and human, which perfectly matched the inclusive, authentic atmosphere he had worked to create at the center. The word buff continued to hang in the air as both Charles and William seemed to fully appreciate the humor of the situation. What had started as William's casual observation about Jamie's physical transformation had evolved into an unexpectedly funny moment that highlighted the contrast between formal royal protocol and normal human interaction. The smile that had begun to spread across Charles's face was now developing into something approaching genuine laughter. The more he considered William's casual use of the word buff in their formal royal setting, the funnier the situation became. It was as if years of protocol and ceremony had momentarily given way to the simple humor of a father appreciating his son's spontaneous observation. "Buff," Charles repeated again, this time with obvious amusement coloring his voice. "I must remember to incorporate that term into my next speech about youth fitness programs." William, seeing his father's growing amusement, felt his own smile widening. The moment had taken on a life of its own, transforming what could have been a minor embarrassment into a shared laugh between father and son. The formal boundaries that typically defined their public interactions seemed to dissolve as they both appreciated the absurdity of the situation. "Perhaps we should update the royal vocabulary to include more contemporary fitness terminology," William suggested, his grin becoming more pronounced. "We could revolutionize royal commentary on physical development programs." The exchange was becoming increasingly amusing to both of them. Charles, who had spent decades mastering the art of diplomatic language and formal observation, was genuinely entertained by his son's informal approach to describing Jamie's transformation. The contrast between royal protocol and casual conversation had created an unexpectedly funny dynamic. Jamie, still standing near the weights, was beginning to understand that the royal visitors were having some kind of humorous exchange about his physical appearance. While he didn't fully grasp the source of their amusement, he was pleased that his demonstration had sparked such a positive reaction from Charles and William. "Your Majesty seems to find something quite amusing," Marcus observed with a smile, clearly enjoying the relaxed atmosphere that was developing. The formal tension that had characterized the early part of the visit was giving way to something more natural and engaging. "My son has just introduced me to contemporary fitness terminology," Charles explained, his amusement still evident in his voice. "Apparently, young Jamie here has become quite buff through his training with you." The way Charles pronounced the word buff, with a slight emphasis that suggested both his unfamiliarity with the term and his amusement at using it, added another layer of humor to the situation. His formal speaking style made the casual slang sound particularly funny in context. William was now laughing openly at his father's pronunciation and obvious enjoyment of the new vocabulary. "I think you've mastered the usage quite well, Father. Perhaps we should include it in the official visit report." "Indeed," Charles replied, his own laughter becoming more pronounced. "The participants have achieved remarkable physical development, becoming quite buff through their dedicated training." He seemed to be testing how the words sounded in his more formal speaking style, finding the contrast genuinely entertaining. The other participants were beginning to understand that they were witnessing an unusually relaxed and humorous interaction between the King and Prince of Wales. The formal atmosphere of a royal visit was giving way to something that felt more like watching a father and son share a private joke in a public setting. Sarah, the young boxer who had spoken earlier, couldn't help but smile as she watched the royal exchange. "I don't think I've ever seen the King laugh like that," she whispered to another participant. The laughter was becoming contagious throughout the group. Marcus found himself chuckling at the unexpected turn the visit had taken, while the young participants were clearly enjoying the relaxed atmosphere that had developed around William's spontaneous comment and Charles's amused reaction. "You know," Charles said, his laughter beginning to subside, but his smile remaining bright, "I've attended hundreds of fitness and youth development programs over the years, but I don't believe anyone has ever described the participants as buff before. It's rather refreshing, actually." William nodded, still grinning. Sometimes the most direct observation is the most accurate. Jamie has clearly worked hard to achieve his current physical condition, and buff does seem to capture the results quite well. Jamie, finally, understanding that the royal humor was centered on the casual way his physical transformation had been described, found himself smiling broadly. Rather than feeling self-conscious about being the subject of their amusement, he seemed pleased that his hard work had inspired such a positive reaction. "Thank you, Your Royal Highness," Jamie said to William. "I take that as a real compliment. It's taken a lot of work to get to this point." "And it shows," William replied warmly. "The dedication you've put into your training is obvious, regardless of how we choose to describe it." Charles, still clearly amused by the entire exchange, turned to address the broader group of participants. "I think what my son's observation illustrates is that your achievements here are impressive by any measure and in any terminology. Whether we use formal language or contemporary slang, the results speak for themselves." The moment had evolved from a simple slip into casual language into a shared experience of humor and genuine connection. The barriers between formal royal protocol and natural human interaction had temporarily dissolved, creating space for authentic appreciation of the center's work and the participants' achievements. Marcus seized the moment to highlight what had just occurred. "This is exactly the kind of authentic connection we try to foster here. Real communication, genuine appreciation, and the ability to find joy and humor in shared experiences." The laughter continued to ripple through the group as they prepared to move on to the next part of the visit. Charles and William's shared amusement over the buff comment had created an atmosphere of warmth and accessibility that would characterize the remainder of their time at the center. As they began walking toward the next demonstration area, Charles leaned slightly toward William and said quietly, "I must admit, I'm rather enjoying this expanded vocabulary. Perhaps I should incorporate more contemporary language into my public observations." William's grin widened again. "Just wait until the headlines read, 'King Charles describes youth participants as buff during royal visit.'" The image of such a headline seemed to strike both of them as particularly funny, and Their laughter resumed with renewed energy. The formal royal visit had transformed into something much more human and memorable for everyone involved. The shared laughter between Charles and William continued to create ripples of warmth throughout the fitness center as they moved toward the final demonstrations of their visit. The word buff had somehow become the unofficial theme of the afternoon, with both royal visitors occasionally exchanging amused glances when they observed other participants' physical transformations. You know, Charles said as they approached a group preparing to demonstrate their cardiovascular fitness routine, "I'm beginning to think we've been far too formal in our language when describing the achievements of young people in these programs. Perhaps a more direct approach has its merits." William nodded enthusiastically. There's something to be said for calling impressive results what they are, without hiding behind diplomatic language. Marcus, who had been listening to their conversation, found himself appreciating this unexpected development. The royal visit had evolved into something far more engaging and memorable than the typical formal ceremony he had anticipated. The genuine laughter and relaxed interaction between Charles and William was creating exactly the kind of authentic atmosphere he had hoped to achieve. The cardiovascular fitness group was made up of participants who had developed impressive endurance and overall conditioning through months of dedicated training. Their instructor, Maria, had designed a program that combined running, cycling, and interval training to help young people build both physical stamina and mental resilience. These participants have developed remarkable cardiovascular health, Maria explained to the royal visitors. When they started, many of them couldn't run for more than a few minutes without becoming winded. Now they're competing in local races and achieving personal fitness goals they never thought possible. As the group demonstrated their routine, moving through a series of exercises that showcased their improved conditioning and coordination, Charles found himself genuinely impressed by their obvious dedication and results. The transformation stories he was observing went far beyond simple physical improvement to encompass real changes in confidence, discipline, and life direction. "The level of fitness they've achieved is quite remarkable," Charles observed, then paused and smiled slightly before adding, "One might say they've all become rather fit and healthy." William caught the careful way his father had avoided using the word buff again and couldn't suppress a grin. Indeed, their physical conditioning is quite impressive through any description we might choose. The private joke between them added an element of ongoing amusement to the remainder of the visit, but it didn't detract from their genuine interest in the center's work. If anything, the relaxed atmosphere created by their shared humor seemed to encourage more open and authentic interactions with the participants. During the final portion of the visit, Charles and William had the opportunity to speak individually with several participants about their personal experiences and future goals. The conversations revealed the depth of transformation that had occurred, with young people describing not just physical changes but improvements in academic performance, family relationships, and career aspirations. "The training here taught me that I could achieve things I never thought possible," explained Maya, a 17-year-old who had been with the program for 8 months. "When I started, I had no confidence and no direction. Now I'm preparing for university and considering a career in sports medicine." Charles listened intently to Maya's story, clearly moved by her transformation. "The confidence you've developed is evident in how you carry yourself and express your goals. That kind of personal growth is the most valuable result of any program." William added, "The physical training becomes a foundation for believing in yourself in other areas of life. That's the real power of what they're doing here." As the formal visit portion concluded, Marcus gathered the participants together for a group photograph with the royal visitors. The atmosphere was relaxed and celebratory, with genuine smiles and laughter evident throughout the group. The shared humor from earlier in the day had created bonds that extended well beyond the usual formality of royal engagements. "Before we conclude," Charles said, addressing the assembled group, "I want to thank you all for sharing your stories and demonstrating the remarkable results of your hard work. Whether we describe your achievements as impressive remarkable or buff. He paused for emphasis, generating another wave of laughter. The important thing is that you've discovered your own potential and are using it to build better futures. The participants erupted in applause, clearly appreciating both the recognition of their achievements and the humor that had characterized the visit. William stepped forward to add his own comments. What we've seen here today represents everything that's best about youth development programs. You not only transformed your own lives, but become examples for others in your community. And you've taught my father some new vocabulary in the process. Charles laughed again at William's reference to their ongoing private joke. Indeed, I suspect I'll never look at fitness programs quite the same way again. You've broadened my perspective considerably. As they prepare to leave the fitness center, both Charles and William took time for individual conversations with Marcus and his staff, discussing the center's funding, expansion plans, and ongoing support needs. The humor from earlier in the day had not diminished their serious commitment to supporting the center's work. This has been one of the most enjoyable and authentic visits I participated in, Charles told Marcus privately. The combination of impressive achievements, genuine transformation stories, and unexpected humor created something quite special. Marcus smiled warmly. The participants will be talking about this day for years. Having the King and Prince of Wales share such genuine laughter with them creates memories that go far beyond the usual royal visit. As their motorcade prepared to depart, Charles and William waved to the gathered participants and staff who had assembled outside to see them off. The young people were still clearly energized by the success of the visit and the unusual warmth that had characterized the entire afternoon. During the drive back to Windsor Castle, Charles and William continued to reflect on the day's events with obvious satisfaction and continued amusement. I suspect that when the official visit report is written, Charles said with a smile, the term buff may not appear in the final documentation. William laughed. Perhaps we should suggest it as an alternative to physically well-developed or demonstrating excellent conditioning. It's certainly more direct. The participants seem to appreciate our reaction, Charles observed. Sometimes the most meaningful connections happen when we step outside the formal protocols and respond naturally to what we're seeing. As Windsor Castle came into view, both father and son were already looking forward to sharing the story of their unexpectedly humorous afternoon with other family members. The day had demonstrated that even formal royal duties could create space for genuine laughter, authentic connection, and memorable moments that would be cherished by everyone involved. The fitness center visit had achieved all of its official objectives in terms of recognizing community achievement and supporting youth development programs. But beyond the formal success, it had created something more valuable, a reminder that humor, spontaneity, and genuine human connection could enhance rather than diminish the impact of royal engagement with the communities they serve. Years later, the story of Charles and William's shared laughter over the buff comment would be recalled fondly by the fitness center participants as a moment when royal protocol gave way to authentic human interaction, creating bonds and memories that lasted far longer than any formal ceremony could have achieved.